Welcome to Exploring Nevada and to Boulder City, where this diesel locomotive will soon be pulling a tourist train, originating from Boulder City and heading west to Railroad Pass, to a dramatic overview of the Las Vegas Valley. Hello, I'm Gwen Clancy with the Nevada Department of Museums, Library, and Arts, and joining me to talk about this exciting vision is Greg Corbin, who is the director of the Railroad Museum here in Boulder City.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, Greg, for giving us a magnificent ride on this train.
Great.
I hope that everyone will soon have the chance to experience that, the way the train rises, and pretty soon you'll be able to actually go into the Las Vegas Valley.
Exciting project.
It's a great project. Do you want to tell people what it's all about and what you imagine will be here soon?
Well, to just give you a little bit of background here, the state of Nevada has been pursuing the development of a southern branch of Nevada State Railroad Museum here for a number of years, such as we have in Carson City, as most people know already.
And if you don't know, you should know. Go to Carson City.
Right?
It's a tremendous museum.
Right. The state of Nevada was very fortunate in that we acquired a large portion, or a portion of the historic Boulder Branch Line from the Union Pacific in 1985. Shortly after we acquired that in 1986, we subsequently did a feasibility study to determine the best use of the rail line and the rail yards and the property that we had received in the donation. And that's where the idea of developing a tourist railroad developed. In 1988, then we did another study to study the possibilities of what we could do with the site, specifically here in Boulder City, in terms of the development of a state railroad museum. And since then, we have master planned the project, and we've been moving forward over the years to begin to pull the pieces together to not only get the tourist train operation up and running, which we've been focusing on, but the development of the Nevada State Railroad Museum here also.
And so what we have here right now is a maintenance facility that's been a lot of rolling stock.
Right. This is the first phase of the development. We have focused our efforts on getting the tourist train operation up and going. We've, in 1993, acquired a large collection of rolling stock from the defunct Heber Creeper Railroad in Heber City, Utah. The state of Nevada was fortunate to be able to purchase that collection. Had a lot of different pieces. It had steam locomotives, it had a diesel locomotive, it had passenger cars, it had freight cars, had a rolling post office, dining car, many fine examples of what we would need to pull from a collection of railroad rolling stock to develop the State Railroad Museum here. And of that collection, we've taken pieces that we're going to use specifically for the tourist train operation. We're going to start the operation up with a diesel locomotive. And then we have 3 Pullman coaches, or Harriman-style coaches, as they're known, and then we have 2 open-air coaches that we intend to refurbish and restore for the operation. We hope to get that whole operation going up here by early 2001. We've still got several major components to do, yes.
Yeah, things look a little bit dilapidated at the moment,
yeah.
But I'm sure with a lot of elbow grease and a lot of dollars, right, you'll get there. Right. Well, now let's talk about how the operation actually works for people, or will work. You would board the trains here, close to where we are.
What we'll do is that we have 40 acres of property here in Boulder City. It's the old ex-Union Pacific rail yards, and we have 4 miles of the existing Boulder Branch Line. And what we'll do is that we'll have passenger facilities here in Boulder City. We'll have a ticket office, and we'll have a small gift shop, hopefully. And then we'll have the parking, obviously, and then we'll have a loading platform, some kind of structure that's very common to railroads, in that we have a long unloading and loading platform that's covered, and where people can be sheltered from the shade and the elements of the weather. They'll get on the train here in Boulder City. We'll proceed west toward Railroad Pass in the Las Vegas Valley and take a 4-mile trip to Railroad Pass. And along the way, we hope to educate the people that are on that train about a little bit about why the Boulder Branch Line was constructed and the role it played in the construction of Hoover Dam and all the equipment and material and machinery that it took to bring here to Boulder City to go to the dam site. We'll get to talk a little bit about the history of Boulder City and how it was established as a government town for the workers there.
So as you roll along on this probably about a 45-minute ride you mentioned earlier, you'll have a chance to look out and see the flora and the fauna.
And it'll give us a chance to also educate people a little bit about the surroundings in the Mojave Desert in southern Nevada. And we're situated here in the El Dorado Valley of southern Nevada. And
just 22 miles, I think we mentioned this, maybe southeast of Las Vegas, for those of you not familiar with Boulder City.
Just a few miles from Lake Mead and Hoover Dam. Okay.
Well, listen, let's take a short break, and we will be back to talk with Greg some more about the operation and also to talk later on in the program with Bob Nyland about the historical aspects of this very interesting site. So stick with us.
Gather around. Now, everyone, this is an exhibit of an Ice Age mammal. Now, long ago in Nevada, these ancient elephants rummaged through springs and stream beds. Imagine one time, herds of these huge animals roamed in what might have been your own backyard. You'd be amazed.
Welcome back. I'm Gwen Clancy with the Nevada Department of Museums, Library, and Arts, and today it's my privilege to be here in Boulder City at the site of what will be a tourist railroad. And with me is Greg Corbin, who's in charge of that. Greg, let's talk about what the ride will actually be like. Let's say we're chugging along, and I think chugging isn't quite the word. What are we doing when we're being pulled by a diesel locomotive?
Rumbling.
Rumbling, okay. As we're rumbling along with all kinds of wonderful train sounds, we'll be looking out to right and left. And what are the kinds of things that you're going to draw our attention to?
Well, we're gonna draw your attention to all the fine examples of what the Mojave Desert in southern Nevada is all about. A lot of people come here and just see stark desert, but the desert's full of wonderful life, as you well know from the rides that we had taken earlier.
Well, I didn't know it until I talked to you.
Right.
But you've got all those interesting cacti out there.
Right. We're gonna talk about the forces of Mother Nature that form the El Dorado Valley that the train overlooks as we proceed west toward Las Vegas Valley in the River Mountains. As we approach the River Mountain range, we're going to talk about the geology and forces that form the mountains and geologic formations. We have a natural land bridge up there known as Teacup Rock.
The Teacup, where you see that little
sliver of blue sky that appears from behind the rock. Yes,
like the little handle of the teacup, and that's called the Teacup.
That's Teacup Rock because it looks like a teacup handle. It does. A teapot handle on a teapot. We're gonna teach you a little bit about all the vegetation that is found in the Mojave Desert. Of course, the creosote brush is very common down here, such as sagebrushes in the rest of central and northern Nevada. But there's many fine examples of cacti down here that a lot of people, when they're driving on the road, may not even notice. We're going to see beavertail cactus. We're going to see silver cholla, buckhorn cholla, and monkey-tailed cholla. There's barrel cactus. There's many fine examples of cacti along the way that people will have the chance to see. And if we're really lucky, certain times of year we might see the Wiley E. desert tortoise, and we might see some coyote. And during the winter months, fall and winter months in the River Mountain range that we pass through up near Railroad Pass, we also may have the opportunity to see some bighorn sheep.
Bighorn sheep. That would be a real treat for a lot of people.
Yes. One of the major components of this project is to extend the line, as you well know. We have plans to extend the line for 2.5 miles beyond Railroad Pass, which will give the riders of the train the opportunity to see the sprawling Las Vegas Valley. For those of us that live here in the southern part of the state, we may not get overly excited about it, but nonetheless, it's very impressive to the visitors and people that take the time to come to southern Nevada. And as you well know, you've been here enough times, that it is impressive, especially at night.
Well, it'd be especially impressive, I think, to be on the train, because at the moment the tracks stop before you get to the rise.
That's right.
So you have this sense of coming up over a hill, but you can't really get there because the train tracks are not there. But if you were to go up over the hill, and at nighttime especially, you'd have an incredible, magnificent view of the whole valley. Now, will you have moonlight rides?
We plan to. That's all part of our plans to run special type excursion trains. Everything from like what we do in Carson City, such as the Santa train at Christmas time. But we have the opportunity here, because of the type of railroad operation we have here versus we have in northern Nevada. We can do those kind of things. We can not only run the excursion trains during the day, but we'll be able to do nighttime runs where we maybe have a full moon or city lights special. We'll be able to do kind of receptions or charter trains for charter groups and stuff that can maybe run at night and have a chance for the people to see the Las Vegas Valley at nighttime and all the sea of lights, as I think I heard referred to earlier.
Well, for those of you not familiar with Boulder City, it's a wonderful place for families to come, and it's very historically significant for several reasons. Certainly Hoover Dam, and that's why a lot of people are coming through this place. So this site, in addition to being very historically significant, is also strategically placed.
Right. You know, one interesting little note about Boulder City is that this was a government town, and this was built by the U.S. government solely for the purpose of construction of Hoover Dam. And because it was a federal town, federal law prohibited gaming. And when the town was incorporated in the late 1950s, the city elected to observe that ban on gaming. So this is the only city in the state of Nevada that does not allow any form of gaming or gambling whatsoever.
And it relies primarily on tourism.
Tourism, yes. Yeah, because of its proximity to Lake Mead, which is the second largest tourist attraction, non-gaming tourist attraction in the state of Nevada, and Hoover Dam also.
So people could do their gambling over the hill in Las Vegas.
That's right.
And then head over here to the railroad operation and down to Hoover Dam.
Right. This is a great example for people to come out and participate in our cultural heritage and learn a little bit about the local history down here and transportation systems and the role that the railroad played in the construction of Hoover Dam.
Terrific. Well, in fact, we will be talking a little bit more about the economics of it after a short break. So please stay with us. We're going to hear from some people who are very proud of Boulder City.
Lived and he realized there was a rider and a saddle on his back, and he exploded. Only in Nevada.
Welcome back. This is Gwen Clancy with the Nevada Department of Museums, Library, and Arts. Today we are here in Boulder City at the site of what will eventually be a tourist railroad and museum. And with me is Bob Nyland, who is Curator of History at the Nevada State Museum in Carson City. Bob, thank you very much for coming down to talk to us about the history of this railroad.
It was a pleasure to come down, and I've enjoyed it, and riding the train earlier today was a lot of fun. To give some information, and I brought some photographs from the Bureau of Reclamation has provided this. When we really talk about this site where we're at with the facility here, we have to start with in September of 1930, when the initial, this is actually at the spike ceremony where the Secretary of Interior, Wilbur, was driving a silver spike for the Boulder City railroad that was built down here. It's about 22 miles long. And of course, it was the first step in building this gigantic project of building Hoover Dam. And so it was very important. And again, here we have the ceremony. And then I have another shot that shows the track laying.
And this was in 1931, is that right,
1930 in September, and then the line was ready by 1931. And of course, it was critical to have the line ready because materials had to be brought in, and of course, the equipment for this major undertaking. But this was the first stage. There was actually two additional stages in the construction for the railroad that played a part. There was from this site at the summit or at the yards here, there was a government railroad that was built down. And then from the government rail, the 6 companies who was awarded the contract in early 1931, they were a group of Western construction companies, had also their railroad line, which was involved, as we can see here. This is their yards there at the gravel plant site. And when we talk about that, again, here's another shot of the tremendous amount of gravel that was needed to be brought. And of course, they did a search. They looked for sites within about a 50-mile range, and they discovered that the best site was across the river in Arizona. And this next shot is really interesting. They built a trestle across the river into Arizona to bring the gravel. And we're talking about lots of gravel was needed to be brought over to be used. And
that was it to make the cement?
To make the concrete.
So they would,
because they brought cement and sand and gravel. And this is one of the cement plants this was the, I want to make sure I got the right site here. This was there was the high mix and the low mix site. And of course, that's where the gravel was brought back first to the plant to be sorted, and then it was brought on to the different mixing plants. And from then, when they mixed it, then they would make the concrete that was needed. And it was at that point that they were put into, here's another good shot that shows, you can see the gravel being brought to the sites of the different plants. There was the high mix, which was to help and take care of the high parts of the construction of the dam, because we're talking 726 feet high. And of course, the low mix was down right on the river base there to provide for the low mix to take care of all the concrete that would be needed. And of course, these were, once the concrete was mixed and made, then it was poured into these containers that were 8 feet high and 6 feet wide, that were for the cubic yards that went into constantly being moved to the dam site. And maybe this shows, I mean, once they started to pour the concrete after the site had been, of course, they had to put cofferdams in there and divert through diversion tunnels the water around, and then they excavated the site to make sure that they had bedrock. And 24 hours, once they started pouring the concrete, it was a major, major undertaking. And of course, that's why this site where we sit today, where the future Railroad Museum of the Tourist, is so much a part of that history, because of the need to have the materials and the equipment to start this whole process. And just another shot that shows, this is on the government railroad. They built this is a big penstock that was used and put in place. It was fabricated. There was a plant and then put in place for the hydroelectric power, and tremendous amount of effort, and just the size you can see there. And one more. This is, again, a very interesting shot in 1934 that shows when UP was promotional. They brought their first streamlined locomotive train down to this area, and was actually, you can see again the huge penstock. They're 30 feet in diameter versus the locomotive there.
Well, Bob, this was a branch railway, I guess it would be called,
right,
of 22 miles from Las Vegas. And if we could push a button and suddenly be back in the early 30s, what would we be seeing happening in terms of material and activity?
Tremendous activity on the railroad. You would be seeing, it would be so busy because of the trains moving into this area here, into the yards, and then activities down by the dam. They would have 24 hours a day, trains moving materials, and as we talked about, the gravel to the plants. So it would have probably seemed like constant activity, constant things going on 24 hours a day.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, so it was busy then. It's pretty quiet now. But within a year and a half, we hope that it'll be very busy again with tourists like you able to come here and ride the historic rails here in Boulder City. Now, stay tuned, and we'll be back with more. Welcome back. This is Gwen Clancy with the Nevada Department of Museums, Library, and Arts, and I'm talking with Greg Corbin today about what will be a very exciting tourist railroad here in Boulder City. And Greg, let's talk for a minute about kind of the economic impact of this railroad museum. Where we're placed, actually, right here on the Boulder City Highway that goes directly to the dam, to Hoover Dam, is wonderful because it brings a lot of tourists.
Oh, this is great. We have great visibility here. The entire railroad that we've been talking about in terms of the tourist train operation parallels the Highway 93 and 95, otherwise known as Nevada Highway in Boulder City here, is parallel to that highway. So anybody going to and from Hoover Dam in Las Vegas is right alongside the railroad and be able to see the train operational. And of course, the site here where people will be coming to ride the train once we get the operation up and going here by January 1, 2001, which is our target date, will have very easy access here. And of course, our museum site here in Boulder City is at a very prime corner to and from Las Vegas and Hoover Dam also. That intersection sees over 37,000 cars on an average a day. And it's not just another busy intersection, it's a busy intersection with the kind of people that we're after. This is every major tour operator that operates a bus out of Las Vegas and goes to Hoover Dam goes through this intersection, plus all the people that take the time to leave Las Vegas and leave the Strip to see Hoover Dam and some of the other cultural heritage type attractions that are found in Henderson and here in Boulder City are passing through this intersection. So the placement for this project couldn't be more perfect.
Well, there's certainly a lot of enthusiasm for this project in this room,
right.
And I understand that there's a lot of enthusiasm on the part of some other people, and let's go ahead and listen to some of those statements from some of the folks around Nevada.
Well, what a privilege to be able to be here at the Boulder City Railroad Museum this morning to tell the people that I'm extremely excited about the possibility of having the Railroad Museum locate here in Boulder City. This would be the southern branch of the State Railroad Museum system. And what this will offer Boulder City is an opportunity to become more tourist-oriented as far as people that are seeking out this type of recreation. And it's surprising around the country how many people actually do visit towns and communities just because of the fact that there's a railroad that's there that will offer them an opportunity to take rides and enjoy the scenic area around the town. And I see that happening here in Boulder City. I think this is a great addition to our city, and I certainly support it 100%.
Railroads have been an important part of the development of the state of Nevada, and really important in the city of Boulder City because Boulder City was the city developed and built to build Hoover Dam. And the development you see now in southern Nevada would not have happened without Boulder Dam and without railroads. And we're real pleased that the historic museum has decided to be located in Boulder City because we think this is not only a tribute to our past, but also will help our future in regards to bringing more people to Boulder City to see what we're all about.
People in Boulder City are very proud of their heritage and their connection to Hoover Dam, and railroads were a very important part of that. I'm especially happy to have the Nevada Railroad Museum in Boulder City because it gives yet another reason for families to stop and explore our fine community.
When Nevada State Railroad Museums ran the demonstration train down here in Boulder City for the legislature a few years back, the people that stopped on the highway just to watch a steam train was amazing, especially children and grandparents trying to explain what a steam engine was. You're talking about 4 miles to Railroad Pass, 8 miles to Henderson. If they extend the track that far, you're talking about an 8-mile billboard. And by that billboard, I mean this train running up and down 8 miles in front of 20 million people that drive down that highway every day. Because I run the Hoover Dam store at the dam since 1974. We put 10 million go east, 10 million go west from Arizona to Nevada. We have 1 million tourists a year, that paid tourists that take the tour of the dam. About 3 million just hang out. And, you know, when we go up to 33 million tourists a year here, it's got to be a paying proposition. I hope the legislature or private enterprise makes that railroad happen.
Well, this is clearly an idea that has a lot of support. So, Greg, when do we get to ride the train?
Well,
what do we need to do in order to get that train rolling?
Well, of course, currently the legislature is in session right now in Carson City, and we have already presented our budgets, and we've been very fortunate in that the governor has signed off on a fairly significant appropriation to get this project up and going. We've got $562,000 and some change that is coming into the project that's going to allow us to do some restoration refurbishment work, build our passenger facilities, do some other requirements that we need to take care of from an operation standpoint, such as signal gates and crossing some railroad crossovers, things that we have to have in place for the train once it's up and running.
Well, I suppose that 2001, which is your projected date, is that right?
It's only a year and a half away already.
It seems like a long way, but I suppose it'll get here very quickly.
Very quickly. There's a lot to do between now and then.
Okay, so you will be busy, very busy in the next 18 months. And we hope that very soon we will be able to come back to you with another segment of Exploring Nevada, and we'll be able to say, come on over to Boulder City. We have the train ride ready to go, and we have the museum built, although that may be the next stage, is getting the museum built.
Right.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being with us.